You are going to learn all about the great-great-grandmother of all modern ships today. My beautiful darling was the first ocean-going ship to be made of iron, the first to have a screw propeller and a balanced rudder, and she was the first luxury ocean liner, so she's a very, very special ship indeed. But it's quite fitting that you've just come from my famous Temple Meads railway station because, believe it or not, it was the railways that led to the creation of my ships. Her story, for me, starts back in 1835. I was attending a board of directors meeting for the Great Western Railway Company in London, and one of the directors started to complain that the line was going to be too long and far too expensive. Now, I quipped in reply that if we were serious about making our fortune, we should build a steamship and extend the railway all the way from London to New York. You could alight on at Paddington, my station in London, ride the Great Western Railway here to Bristol. We could build a Great Western hotel to look after our passengers before they jumped on a Great Western steamship and set off for New York. Once we all stopped laughing, we suddenly thought, actually, that's not a bad idea. And little did I know it, but from that joke, I set the wheels in motion to revolutionize global travel. I also invented the package holiday. Not bad for a man of just 29, of course. Just a few years later, and my first ship, the Great Western, which was a wooden paddle steamer built here in Bristol, made the first successful crossing across the Atlantic powered by steam. Having proved that this was going to work, well, lots of imitators started following in my wake, and so I set about creating the successor to the Great Western, the ship that would ultimately become the SS Great Britain. I reassembled my team of esteemed experts, a master shipbuilder by the name of William Patterson, an esteemed naval captain called Christopher Claxton, and a good engineering friend of mine, Thomas Guppy, who'd worked with me on the engines for the Great Western Railway. Having got them together, I set about designing the sister ship to the Great Western. Now, originally, she was going to be a wooden paddle steamer with a copper bottom, just like her predecessor. But I was inspired by a small ship called the Rainbow, which was a tiny little iron tug I saw going past in the harbour one day. And I began to think to myself, well, if you could make a tiny little tug out of iron, why not a full-sized ship? And I quickly realised if I built my new vessel out of iron, I could make it far larger than anything ever built before, far stronger, and believe it or not, far lighter. If you were to try to build something this size out of wood, you'd need so many extra beams and supports inside to hold it together. It would be 40% heavier than the Great Britain finally became. The only downside, of course, of this groundbreaking decision to switch to iron was that the company had already bought vast quantities of African oak, but the less said about that, the better. Didn't make me very popular in the office, but seeing as I set the precedent for the way ships will be built forever after, I think it was a risk worth taking. Of course, it's probably worth noticing that a lot of this work was done in the drawing offices, which are here on site. Now, visitors aren't able to go into them at the moment, but from 2017, we'll have them open to the public. We'll have them redecorated just as they were in my day, and you'll actually be able to step back in time to the very day in 1840, where I presented my report to the board of directors about changing her design from paddles to propeller. Once this decision was made, we sat about with the construction again. And I have to say, her size ballooned from a mere 1,300 tons, as we first envisaged, to over 3,400 tons in weight. And her size increased even more. She would end up being 100 feet longer than any other ship ever built, and really something quite special.